Hey guys, we're going to cover the Lasso tool in this tutorial, and I've already actually got it selected over here. It's the third option down, and if you don't see the Lasso tool, you'll probably see either the polygonal Lasso tool or the magnetic Lasso tool. It's going to be this first one. Looks like a piece of rope. If you're familiar with lassos and cowboys, then it should look like a lasso to you. Okay, so once we have this tool selected, I'm just going to describe some of these options as I have in other tutorials. Over here, as always, we have our preset options, so anything that we change over here will be available as a preset if we save our tool in that way. So let's say we had our feather set to a certain pixel size and anti-aliasing checked on or off, or a certain selection box up here selected. We could save all those as a preset for our lasso tool. So we're going to keep it just here on the new selection here as I start to describe this, and all we're going to do is click and drag around this woman's hat real quick, and we're just going to come underneath the bottom side of her face and back up and let go. And you'll see it closed automatically. If I would have left off somewhere over here, it would have automatically closed and zipped right back up to the starting point. So, Photoshop has kind of given you this automatic option to feather right inside of this toolbar up here. So if we had said 50 and we hit enter, when we copy this, so if we did a Command C, and let's say we did file new, sure, that's fine, and a Command V, you'll see that it didn't feather it very much. But what I can show you is we're just going to close this. The reason it didn't feather it very much is because it didn't feather it at all. That's because we set these after we had made our selection. So now that we have 50 pixels up there, we're going to go back. Oh, we're going to go back and I'm going to draw our lasso around her face again. See how I let go there and it connected? Then we're going to Command C again, file new. Could have done Command N, hit OK, and do Command V to paste. And there's the feather of 50 pixels. I was kind of playing a little joke on you there that it didn't actually feather. So that's a 50 pixel feather, and it's nice because it's right up there. Just remember to enter your numbers in before you make the selection. Otherwise it won't retroactively do the feathering. So let's go ahead and close out of this one. I'm not going to save this, and we're not going to save this. Okay, so these other buttons. This is going to be a second selection area. So every time you use a lasso tool, you're probably going to want to make more than one selection. So if we hit this button, it allows us to make a second selection. And we can actually make 3 or 4. We can make as many as we want with this selected. But if we have this new selection button on, we can only make one. See how I erased all my other ones? It means every single time I make a selection, the old one goes away. So just remember, this is for a single selection and this is for a double. This one over here, though, watch what this does. I'm gonna it's a subtraction selection. So if, let's say, I wanted only her eyes, right? Then I can kind of trim away, and you'll see I'm getting closer and closer. So there, we've kind of only got her eyes now. So that's what this does. It allows you to cut away from previous selections. This one right here is actually an intersection. So whatever's already been selected, now if I have this turned on, only what I choose to select between the two is going to be selected. So you see how there's some area left over right in the middle, but on the left and the right? That's going to disappear. So it's lets you select even smarter if it takes a couple times for you to select your object. So just remember new selection, adding a selection, subtracting from a selection, and intersecting from a selection. So I'm going to go back to new selection. We're going to select the original part of the photo around the hat, underneath the face, and let it go and see it kind of smoothed out my line there. Now, I've said this in other tutorials, just if you haven't gotten to them yet, this anti-aliasing button right here is very important. If you don't have this turned on, this check mark checked, you're going to actually see a lot of jagged parts of your selection when you copy and paste. And if you haven't been watching this so far, all you need to do is go back to this rectangular marquee tool and watch the tutorial on that, and I explain anti-aliasing. Okay, so back to my lasso tool. This is probably the coolest button about all of the lasso tools. It's this refine edge button. So right now I have my selection selected, and I'm going to have 0 for a feather, and I'm actually going to redo this just so I make sure that I have 0 selected under the feather. So there, I've made my selection, and I'm going to hit refine edge, and this is where you can get really detailed with the lasso tool. So by hitting that, you see it kind of masks everything out, and this is just so I can play with this set of tools inside of the lasso tool. So we can turn on smart radius, and we can play with that. You see how I'm able to change that, right? And if I turn smart radius off, see the change there? It kind of is just saying, okay, what's the most perfect circle I can make out of this shape? So if we crank this back down, I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to start to show you some of these adjust edge options. So if we smooth out the edge, you see that? Look at this part right here, right there. See how it's at this angle? Watch when I hit this smooth edge and ramp it up. It kind of curves it, right? Which is nice. If you've made a relatively good circle about something, but maybe there's just a little bit of wobbly lines, this is a good way to smooth out those edges. Of course, we can feather just like we did before, and we can also add some contrast back in if we feather too much. So this feather and contrast work in opposition to each other. So in order to shift your edge, what you're going to want to do is slide this back and forth, and you'll either get a -% and you'll see that it shifted the edge of my selection all the way to the interior of what I originally selected, or we can move it to the right and it'll actually shift the edge all the way to the exterior of what I've selected by 100%. So that's shift edge. And you're going to want to leave that at 0% unless you want a little bit more of your selection or a little bit less. And these are the refine edge tools. This view mode up here is just another way to view it. So you could say this is my selection if you like looking at your actual image. You could do the original ants marching view on black, white. You could do just black and white if you're trying to do something on an alpha channel. You could do on a transparent layer, or you could do a total reveal layer, in which case you can't even see your selection. So that's refine edge within the lasso tool, and if we hit OK here, we'll go back to this normal thing, and just to review, this is new selection, more than one selection, subtract, and the intersect. And that's the lasso tool.